You know you're overtrading. You've known for a while. You open positions that don't quite meet your criteria. You take trades out of boredom. You force setups that aren't there because sitting and doing nothing feels wrong. You tell yourself you're being active, staying engaged, capitalizing on opportunities, but deep down, you know the truth. You're not trading the market, you're trading your discomfort with stillness, and it's costing you more than just money. Overtrading is one of the most destructive patterns in trading, not because it's dramatic, not because it blows accounts in one day, but because it slowly, quietly erodes your edge, your capital, and your confidence. Trade by trade, click by click, until you're stuck in a cycle where you know you should stop, but you can't seem to make yourself do it. And that's not a discipline problem, that's a psychological problem. And until you understand what's actually driving the behavior, you'll keep doing it no matter how many times you promise yourself you won't. Let me tell you what's really happening when you overtrade. You're not trading because you see opportunity. You're trading because you need to do something. You need to feel involved. You need to feel like you're working, like you're making progress, like you're not wasting time sitting in front of screens doing nothing. And that need, that compulsion to act, it's not coming from your trading plan. It's coming from your nervous system. You're uncomfortable, maybe you're bored, maybe you're anxious, maybe you feel like you're falling behind, maybe you just took a loss and you need to fix it. Whatever the emotion is, trading has become the way you regulate it. You're not executing a strategy. You're medicating discomfort with activity. And every time you do that, you're training yourself that trading is about how you feel, not about what the market is doing. This is why overtrading is so hard to stop. Because it's not a strategic mistake. It's an emotional coping mechanism. And you can't logic your way out of an emotional pattern. You can know overtrading is bad. You can understand it destroys your edge. You can promise yourself you'll stop. But the next time that uncomfortable feeling shows up, the urge to trade shows up with it. And unless you've built the capacity to sit with that discomfort without acting on it, you'll click. You'll find a reason, you'll convince yourself this one is different. And the cycle continues. Let's break down what's actually driving this. First, there's fear of missing out. You're watching price move and you feel like you should be in it. You see other traders posting wins and you feel like you're sitting on the sidelines while everyone else is capitalizing. So you lower your standards. You take setups that are marginal. You tell yourself it's close enough to your criteria, but it's not. You're just afraid of missing the move. And that fear makes you act when you should be waiting. Then there's the fear of stillness. This one is quieter but just as destructive. You can't tolerate doing nothing. Sitting and waiting feels like you're not working. Like you're not being productive, like you're wasting the opportunity to be in front of the charts, so you create action. You find reasons to trade, not because the setup is there, but because doing something feels better than doing nothing, and that need for constant activity is what turns you from a selective trader into a reactive one. There's also the productivity trap. You think trading is about volume, about being busy, about taking trades. And when you're not trading, you feel like you're not really working. But that's backwards. Trading isn't about activity, it's about execution. And execution requires selectivity. The best traders take fewer trades than you think. They spend most of their time doing nothing, waiting, watching, passing on. Opportunities that don't meet their exact criteria. And when their setup finally shows up, they act with conviction. But until then, they're comfortable sitting in cash, because they understand that doing nothing is often the most profitable position. And finally, there's the emotional fixing pattern. You take a loss and immediately you're looking for the next trade. Not because you see a setup, but because you need to feel better. You need to get back to even. You need to prove that last loss was just bad luck. So you trade to fix your emotional state. And that trade, the one you take from emotion instead of from plan, that's usually the one that costs you the most. Not just in money, in confidence, in trust, in the momentum you were building. All of these drivers, they're emotional. They're not about the market. They're about you, about what you can't tolerate, about what you're trying to avoid feeling. And until you see that clearly, until you recognize that overtrading is you trying to regulate your internal state through external action, you'll keep doing it. Because you're not fighting a bad habit. You're fighting an emotional need. And emotional needs don't go away just because you know they're irrational. Let's talk about what overtrading actually costs you. And I don't just mean money, though, that's part of it. Every trade you take that doesn't meet your criteria is a trade against your edge. If your strategy has an edge, it only exists when you execute it correctly. When you take setups that don't meet your exact parameters, you're not trading your edge anymore. You're trading randomness, and randomness doesn't pay over time. So every marginal trade, every forced setup, every boredom trade, it's diluting your results. It's making it impossible to see if your strategy actually works because you're not giving it a fair chance. You're contaminating the data with emotional decisions. Then there's the mental cost. Every time you overtrade, every time you break your own rules, you lose a little bit of trust in yourself. You prove to yourself that you can't follow through, that your plan is optional, that your discipline is conditional, and that erosion of self-trust, that's harder to recover than money. Because once you stop believing you'll do what you say you'll do, every future decision becomes harder. You second-guess yourself. You hesitate on valid setups because you don't trust your judgment anymore. You take invalid setups because you've already proven the rules don't really matter. It becomes a spiral, and the more you overtrade, the deeper that spiral gets. There's also the opportunity cost. While you're taking 5 mediocre trades, you're missing the one great trade. Because you're not paying attention anymore, you're not waiting for your exact setup, you're just reacting to movement. You're in and out of position so fast that when the real opportunity shows up, you either miss it or you're too mentally fatigued to recognize it. Overtrading doesn't just cost you on the trades you take. It costs you on the trades you miss because you're too busy being active to be strategic. And finally, there's the energy cost. Trading when you're overtrading is exhausting. You're constantly watching, constantly clicking, constantly managing positions that shouldn't exist. Your mind never gets a break, and that mental fatigue compounds. It makes your decision-making worse. It makes you more emotional. It makes you more likely to make mistakes, and those mistakes make you more desperate to fix them, which leads to more overtrading. It's a cycle that feeds itself until you're burned out, frustrated, and further from profitable than when you started. If this hit a nerve, leave a like and subscribe. These are the conversations that actually change trading behavior. Not hype, not motivation, just honest examination of what's really happening. Now let me show you what disciplined traders do differently. They don't trade more. They trade less, significantly less. They're not trying to catch every move. They're waiting for their specific setup. And most of the time that means they're doing nothing. They're sitting in cash. They're watching. They're patient. And that patience isn't something they force. It's something they've built through understanding that their edge only exists in specific conditions. Outside of those conditions, they have no edge. So why would they trade? Disciplined traders also understand that boredom is not a signal to trade. It's just a feeling. And feelings don't dictate behavior. They can feel FOMO and recognize it for what it is, an emotional reaction, not market analysis. They've developed the capacity to sit with discomfort without needing to fix it immediately. And that capacity, that ability to tolerate stillness, that's what separates them from traders who can't stop overtrading. They also measure success differently. They don't measure it by how many trades they took. They measure it by how well they executed their plan. Did I follow my criteria? Did I wait for my setup? Did I pass on trades that didn't meet my standards? Those are the metrics. Not activity, not volume. Execution quality. And when you shift to measuring yourself that way, overtrading becomes obvious. It becomes something you can see clearly instead of something you rationalize in the moment. Another thing they do is they design their environment to make overtrading harder. They don't sit in front of charts all day. They set alerts. They check in at specific times. They remove the temptation by removing the constant exposure, because they understand that willpower fails under constant temptation. So instead of relying on willpower, they change the environment. They make the right behavior easier and the wrong behavior harder. That's not weakness. That's strategy. And finally, they've accepted that trading is boring. It's supposed to be boring. If it's exciting all the time, you're probably doing it wrong. Excitement means you're emotionally involved. And emotional involvement is what leads to overtrading, revenge trading, all the behaviors that destroy edge. Boring means you're executing a process. You're following a plan. You're doing the work without needing it to feel a certain way. And that boring, methodical, patient execution, that's what compounds into results over time. Here's the mindset reframe you need. Doing nothing is not wasting time. Doing nothing is protection. It's protecting your capital from being deployed in low-probability situations. It's protecting your mental energy from being drained by constant activity. It's protecting your edge from being diluted by marginal trades. Doing nothing is an active choice. It's a decision, and it's often the most profitable decision you can make. You're not paid to be busy. You're paid to be right when it matters. And being right when it matters requires you to pass on everything that doesn't matter. That means most of your time should be spent not trading. Watching, yes. Learning, yes. But not trading. Because your edge only exists in specific conditions. And those conditions are rare. If you're trading constantly, you're not trading your edge. You're trading your need to feel productive. And the market doesn't reward that. The goal isn't to trade less because trading is bad. The goal is to trade less so that when you do trade, you're executing from clarity, not compulsion. From strategy, not emotion. From patience, not desperation. Quality over quantity isn't just a cliche. It's the only way edge works. You can't have an edge if you're taking every setup that looks vaguely similar to your criteria. Edge requires precision. It requires selectivity. It requires the discipline to say no more than you say yes. And that discipline, that selectivity, it's not something you're born with. It's something you build, trade by trade, by recognizing the urge to act and choosing not to, by sitting with boredom without medicating it with a trade, by proving to yourself that you can wait, that you can be patient, that you can tolerate the discomfort of inaction. Every time you do that, every time you feel the urge and don't act on it, you're building the capacity that disciplined trading requires. So here's what I want you to do. I'm not going to give you a rule. I'm not going to tell you to trade a maximum number of times per day or per week, because rules without understanding just become things to break. What I want you to do is develop awareness. Start noticing when you're about to take a trade, and ask yourself one simple question. Am I taking this because it meets my criteria, or am I taking this because I need to do something? If the answer is the second one, if you're trading to feel productive, to fix boredom, to recover from a loss, to feel involved, don't take the trade. Just sit with the discomfort, notice it, name it, and choose not to act on it. That's the practice. Not trading less, but trading consciously, from awareness, not compulsion. Over time, as you build that awareness, as you practice choosing stillness over action, something shifts. The urge to overtrade gets quieter, not because you're forcing it down, but because you've developed the capacity to recognize it and not be controlled by it. You've built the internal space between the feeling and the action, and in that space, that's where discipline lives. Overtrading isn't a strategy problem. It's a self-regulation problem. And the solution isn't a new rule or a better plan. The solution is developing the psychological capacity to tolerate discomfort without immediately trying to fix it through action. That's the work. And it's harder than learning any technical skill. But it's also the only work that actually matters. Because all the strategy in the world won't help you if you can't stop yourself from clicking when you shouldn't. You already know you overtrade. Now you know why. And now you know what to do about it. Not through rules, through awareness, through practice, through building the capacity to sit still even when it's uncomfortable. That's how you stop overtrading. Not by trying harder, by understanding what's driving it and addressing the real problem, which was never the trading. It was always you. This is Trader's Mental Edge, where trading starts in the mind.